Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Cioffi here. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes. Brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware, your place to go to get everything you need to clean up after a winter storm. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. They have tons of rock salt, the biggest supply of rock salt in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area, and the lowest prices anywhere, along with the sand. They've got Pelado, Mag Ice Pellets and Flakes, two great snow and ice melt products, along with spreaders, shovels, snow blowers. If they stopped working after the last storm, you can pick up a new one at Omni. 631-756-1125 is the phone number. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, just north of the Sunrise Highway on Long Island, and also north of the Southern State and south of the Long Island Expressway. The website is omnitruevalue.com. We've got a winter storm, and it's going to be dumping some big snows in some locations, 1 foot plus snows through parts of Illinois and Indiana on up into Ohio and also into southern Michigan. Then back down even further west. St. Louis could get close to a foot. Detroit might get close to a foot of snow. And there are even some 15 and 16-inch amounts being indicated. The snow shield, as far as accumulations go, extend all the way back into Colorado. This is going to really cover a lot of geography here, down into New Mexico, also into Texas. Could see some icing as you go into parts of north central and northeast Texas on the fringe here, where you have the 1s and 2s. There probably will be some icing, 3 to 4 inches in parts of Oklahoma. See the amounts also extend up into Ohio and into western New York and into northern New York. Now, this only carries us, by the way, through 7 p.m. Thursday. Much of what's to the west from Ohio westward will be over with by then, but the Northeast and down into the northern mid-Atlantic states will be dealing with snow up to the north and the potential for some freezing rain extending south into Pennsylvania and Maryland and possibly even into Northeast Virginia. So, again, covering a lot of geography here. This is a different type of setup that we had from the weekend with the big storm that was offshore. This is what we refer to as an overrunning situation. We have a stalled front. You actually can see just off this map, the frontal boundary is just south of where the snow cuts off. And where that frontal boundary ultimately sets up is going to determine what happens in the coastal areas from Massachusetts down through Connecticut and into southeastern New York State, Long Island, New Jersey, and again through Pennsylvania, Maryland, and into northeastern Virginia. No problems today. We do have some patchy clouds. Actually, there's a little low right off the east coast, sitting offshore by a fair distance, and it's not really producing much, but it is producing some cloud cover that it's thrown back into southeastern New England and eastern Long Island. But areas to the west are enjoying a fairly nice day of sunshine, and the white that you see in this area, by the way, that's not moving, that's the snow cover that's left over from the weekend storm. Now we start to focus our attention on what's going on in the Gulf of Mexico. We've got energy and moisture shooting northward into the plains, and the clouds that you see swinging back in the northern plains and extending down into Wyoming and Utah, that is bitter cold air that has come on in, that's moving in. This is a very, very cold high. It's going to be key to the forecast in the Northeast when we get to Friday. But that cold high is interacting with all that warmer air that's coming up from the Gulf of Mexico. Radar's just starting to get going here, so we're very, very early in the game. We're beginning to see precipitation breaking out, and it's going to break out fairly rapidly as we go through the rest of this afternoon and tonight. But starting to see precip breaking out over Missouri and in through Illinois, southern Illinois, northern Illinois. Looks like it's snowing in Chicago as of 1 o'clock this afternoon. And we're seeing the snows back down into parts of southern Iowa. A lot of this, what you see in the blue, is not reaching the ground. I'm going to run through WPC's probabilities here. So this is the probability for at least 12. And it's a fairly large area here, too. We've got the blue The not the darkest blue, but the next shade over is 50% probability of at least 12. I like to use the 50% line as a good gauge of a solid chance that somebody's going to wind up with a foot in that area, and that's north of St. Louis, but not by far, and also south of Chicago, but not by far. And then you see the area in northern Indiana, the northwestern corner of Ohio, southeastern Michigan, and a small portion of east central Illinois, where they have an 80% probability of at least 12 inches from this particular storm. And obviously, there's a much larger area of 8 and of 4. The other forecast that I want to touch on is what happens when this gets into the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states for Friday into Friday night. And here we have WPC just updated their forecast, and they're indicating now a 30 to 50% chance of at least the equivalent of the equivalent of snow and sleet of 0.25 inch of liquid. So in other words, a quarter of an inch of liquid, melted frozen precipitation, would translate to probably 2.5 inches of snow and sleet. There's going to be a fairly large area of freezing rain, though, through much of this, so that's going to be also part of the equation. And we have WPC's map here for the probability of at least 1/10 of an inch of ice accretion into early Friday morning. The probabilities are increasing in places like northern New Jersey, the lower Hudson Valley, and western Connecticut, but they're still on the low side through 7 a.m. It's really right after that I think the bulk of the cold air will try to drain southward and change any rain over into freezing rain. But higher probabilities as you head 50% probability there in north central PA. And you can see a really large swath of freezing rain here in southern Ohio, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, southern Missouri, northeastern Arkansas, western Tennessee, and western Kentucky. This is going to be a fairly large area, a fairly large storm from the standpoint of the ice accretion. And nobody wants freezing rain. That is the absolute worst. You know, snow lovers, you want these storms, you want it to snow, and that's fine. Snow is one thing. It may be annoying, but it does eventually go away. But freezing rain is destructive. The ice accretion brings down trees and power lines, and we really would kind of wish, we really do wish that it doesn't materialize. So let's look at some of the models. We still are dealing with this battle. The real key here is this high pressure cell you see in Minnesota. This is tomorrow afternoon on the GFS map, and the frontal boundary with this is. Let me just move my little paint box over so I can actually. There you go. So the frontal boundary initially sets up just inland of the coast. And there's little waves that ripple along this front. You've got a very warm southwest flow. The upper atmosphere is extremely warm. But the forecast problem in the Northeast and in the northern mid-Atlantic states is that when we get into Thursday night and Friday, that high and the bulk of this cold air goes into eastern Canada and northern New England, and you start to get into these northeast winds, that cold air is going to drain southward, and oftentimes, if the high is more important here, it forces the frontal boundary further south, as the GFS indicates, and therefore, with all this cold air, you have to worry about the possibility of rain going over to freezing rain in the big cities. Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, especially Philadelphia and New York, and maybe Boston for a little while. But there's no guarantee here that this is correct. We don't know how important that cold air is essentially until we get there on Thursday when that high starts building in. And we do have other models, by the way, that suggest that the track here will be just inland of the coast. And I have to tell you from my forecasting experience in situations like this that 9 times out of 10, that's what happens. The wave runs inland. When the last wave goes by, it brings the cold air in. The precipitation basically winds down and shuts off, and you really don't have too much of a problem from something like this. But We've got the GFS kind of holding on here firm for the last 4 days with this idea that the cold air was going to be very important. The European last night showed a colder run, the frontal boundary further south, and we'll see the new one today. We'll go through that tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show at 7:30. Meanwhile, before we get there, you'll notice as we go through this afternoon and then into tonight and tomorrow, you really start to see the snow and ice and rain break out rapidly across the southern plains and then on up through the middle Mississippi Valley and heading up into Ohio and western New York. The lead snow area is what's coming out of the Gulf of Mexico right now, and that's going to bring the snows to Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and on up into southern Michigan. There's a little bit of overlap here between the first and the second. So there's actually, you don't see this too often. Here's one wave that comes out. Here's the second wave that comes out on Thursday. The first wave comes out on Wednesday. The second wave comes out on Thursday. And then there's one last wave there Friday in Western Virginia. And the key to the forecast is whether the frontal boundary is to the south and passes to the south of New York City. If it passes offshore New Jersey or Delaware and then runs up to the northeast, then there's going to be a problem with the rain changing over to freezing rain. And it might even end as a little bit of snow when it shuts off sometime Friday night. The weekend looks good for Saturday. The model is generating another low coming up the coast on Sunday, but the GFS stands alone so far in bringing this up the coast and close enough to the coast to bring some snow or maybe some mixed precipitation for later Sunday afternoon into Sunday night. The other models are all offshore. And I have this general rule: when there's two storms like this back to back, I focus my attention on what's in front of me with the first one. Really haven't had time to look at the dynamics of the second one. We'll do that tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. And both the Joe and Joe Weather Show and Weather in 5, which is no way I could do it in 5 today, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. 631-756-1125 is the phone number, and the website is omnitruevalue.com. Download the free Meteorologist Joe Cioffi weather app on Google Play or on the App Store. Just search Meteorologist Joe Cioffi and get on the app, and you've got every snow and ice forecast map from Maine all the way down to Georgia from the National Weather Service. They update automatically, along with so many other things with regards to your local weather, local radar, and of course my weather updates. And again, that's free on Google Play or on the App Store. See you tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show at 7:30 Eastern.